between today and on Thursday when the decision is made. Just that in terms of how we present, do you want us to call out the numbers or just to the tables and the pages? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, the way that we have done this all the years, we have never called out the numbers at the ELS level. The numbers are only mentioned at the ER meeting. And also, if you can remember to keep some of the numbers confidential in any event, some of them have not been highlighted in yellow. But I would just want to also just confirm if my recollection is accurate. Let me confirm with members. Mr. Bugula? Okay. Yes, it seems to be accurate. So, Brian, you will not call them the numbers. We will do what we've always done with the yes. Mr. Chokwe? You may unmute, Mr. Chokwe. You are still muted, Mr. Chokwe. All right, members, I would like to proceed. If there is anything, Mr. Chokwe will raise his hand again during the open meeting and find a way of advising members if there is something that he would like us to caution us about. Mr. Chokwe?
Chairperson, thanks. I was struggling to unmute, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think ER has taken a decision I think a year ago or so, where it said that the only time when they can actually talk about numbers is only if they are confidential. Otherwise, they have to indicate that. But I think members can decide how to manage it, because the decision was that a recommended number by a committee to ER shouldn't be confidential, but I think members can actually try to manage that based on the circumstance, Chairperson. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. We don't want to raise the expectations. I think in any event, they will not be prejudiced, Mr. Chokwe, because the final decision, which is an administrative decision or administrative action, is that which is taken by the ER. So even if we don't call out the numbers, we will not be prejudicing them in this particular matter, simply because at the stage of the ELS is merely a recommendation. So the final decision is the one that is taken by the ER. So we need to manage it carefully, and therefore it can only be the ER that will then announce the numbers. So stakeholders will not be prejudiced. Am I correct, Mr. Choko? Because even if were to be taken on review, it will not be the ELS recommendation. It will be the final decision of the ER in terms of administrative action.
Chairperson, you are right in terms of prejudice, but the submission that came before ER was that if the members of the public are in a meeting and there is just indication of that number, page 3, that number, it doesn't look like a very genuine meeting, Chairperson. It's like numbers are hidden when members are in the meeting. But I agree that prejudice, no. But in terms of our processes to say, why are we hiding a number that the members in the meeting of a subcommittee will know that this is the recommendation of a subcommittee, and it can go up or it can go down when we arrive at the ER. But Chairperson, it's for the members to look into the circumstances and actually decide. But we have a decision on the table that says, to the extent that numbers are not confidential, they have to be articulated, but it has to be very clear that this is a recommendation. I think it was also part of educating actually members of the public that there is nothing that is hidden at subcommittees. Things can be discussed in a very open way, but they can still change at the ER. But Chairperson, the ER can actually decide about it. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that guidance and transparency, but I think under the circumstances, I don't know with other members, as I indicated, yes, we need to regulate in the sunshine. We need to be transparent. However, also looking at the two meetings that were requested, they are not far from each other. So we also want to manage these processes carefully and the expectations carefully, so that we don't blow anything out of proportion here and people start talking about the numbers even before we get to the ER. That is the only reason for now, Mr. Chokwe, so we can look into that on a case-by-case basis and look at whether by not mentioning the numbers in this instance, whether that could expose the regulator to any litigation. And in my view, it will not, as I indicated, that it is very clear that when we make decisions, the decisions that are taken by the ER, as it is in this case, it is not an administrative action. So we are still safe from a legal point of view. And however, we will also not prejudice the members of the public and interested parties. Let me hear from the other members of the energy regulator. I'm not alone here, members. I just want us to satisfy ourselves on this particular matter. Mr. Siband. Mr. Spanda, you are on mute.
Yes. Sorry. Apologies, Chairperson. Yes. Well, Mr. Sichotlo indicated that the numbers are not yet final and there's still some adjustment to be made. So I think, Chair, perhaps you could lead with that and put members of the public at ease that the figures that we're looking at are not yet final and therefore we probably are not in a position to explicitly state them. But I'm happy that we could keep them confidential at this stage. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Members, by show of hands, if you're in support that we should keep the numbers confidential at this stage until the meeting of the ER. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Advocate Sitole. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Thank you, Ms. Mpungose. And I don't see Ms. Simane. All the members have supported. I also support. Thank you very much, members, for the support. At this point, I would like Mr. Mabunda, before I open the meeting to the members of the public.
Chair, please forgive me for interjecting. My record seems to be failing me as to the reason why Ms. Simane is not here. However, she did indicate her apology. Please forgive me, Chair. I omitted to record the apology at the appropriate time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We'll note Ms. Simane's apology as well as Ms. Sibia's apology. Now, IT, if you can kindly inform us that the meeting is now live.
Good day, Chairperson. The meeting is live.
Thank you very much for that, and good afternoon again. And I would like to also extend my greetings to the members of the public who have joined to follow the proceedings of today's meeting of the Electricity Subcommittee. This is a special meeting of the Subcommittee of the Energy Regulator, meeting number 231, today's date being the 21st of January 2025. Members of the ELS and the energy regulator that are part of this discussion, starting with myself, I'm Nomfundo Maseti. I am the member primarily responsible for gas, and I'm also the chairperson of the electricity subcommittee. With me today, I am joined by the chairperson of the energy regulator, Mr. Tembani Pukula. I would like Mr. Pukula to greet so that the members of the public can recognize your voice.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to introduce the Deputy Chairperson of the Energy Regulator and the member of the HRRC, HR Committee, Ms. Zandile Mpungose. Ms. Mpungose.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, members. And also, I'd like to greet the members of the public and thank you for joining our live streaming.
Thank you very much. I would like to also introduce Mr. Fungai Sibanda, who is the chairperson of our ITGC, as well as the member of the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee, and the member of the Energy Regulator, Mr. Sibanda.
Good afternoon, Chair, NERSA colleagues, and members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, I would like to introduce the CEO of NERSA and the member of the Electricity Subcommittee, Advocate Nomalanga Stole. Advocate Stole. Advocate Stole.
Chair, sorry, I had a problem with unmuting myself. Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, members of the subcommittee and everyone who has joined us for this particular special meeting. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. At this point, I would like to introduce Mr. Musovukile Mkhize, who is the full-time regulator member primarily responsible for petroleum pipelines and is also a member of the Electricity Subcommittee. Mr. Mkhize.
Greetings to you, Chairperson, members, as well as the members of the public that are following us through the various live streaming platforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Members, I would like to move on to the adoption of the agenda. For today's meeting, as it is a special meeting, we have two items. We have the application made by Eskom for the 6th multi-year price determination for generation business, for the transmission business by the National Transmission Company of South Africa, as well as for Eskom's distribution business. So we will consider all of those three applications together. Although there will be standalone applications and analysis is also on a standalone basis. The next item on the agenda today is the application for tariff reduction and amendment of the power purchase agreement. I would like to invite the ELR team, Mr. Brian Sichotlo, as well as Winnie Mkhize, if you can kindly introduce the application by Eskom. And please, you must also treat some figures confidential, as the matter is not yet finalized, and there are some figures that are supposed to be treated as confidential. You may proceed.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I come after you.
All right, thank you, Chairperson.
Mr. Mkhize, you can start by introducing the matter. Mr. Mkhize, yes, you can start by introducing the matter and hand over to Mr. Sichotlo and the team.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon to yourself and the members of the ELS, as well as the staff and management on this call. Chairperson, it is our privilege to present the Eskom MYPD6 application, which Eskom applied for in August 2024. Today, we will just present to you the high-level outcomes of this application and indicate the direction that we have taken in terms of the analysis as well as the outcomes of the application. Chairperson, I'll just emphasize that the emphasis was on ensuring that Eskom is as efficient as possible in terms of the way it incurs its costs and runs its operations, particularly at generation level, where we saw high levels of increases in terms of coal, primary energy, fuel oils. And so the emphasis, Chairperson, is that Eskom should, going forward, operate as efficiently as possible. We have even defined the efficiencies that Eskom needs to aspire to which we have stated as at 75% EAF as well as 13% UCLF, and ensure that its sales, it aspires for increased sales going forward. So with that, Chairperson, there is a summary decision, but however, I will allow the team to just take us through the various aspects of the application in more detail so that we can get a better appreciation of the analysis that has been done. Mr. Brian Sichotlo, I will allow you to come in and present with your team in more detail. Thank you, Mr. Sichotlo.
Mr. Sichotlo, if you can indicate so that we take it one by one so that we don't jump from one to another. If you can start with the generation business, and then we focus on that, then and the decision as well as the reasons pertaining to the analysis, and then you move on to the next. If you can kindly proceed in that manner.
No, thanks, Chairperson. Thanks, Welile, for that overall introduction. Yes, Chairperson, that was exactly the intention of the team, to say that we will start with the generation, and but what we're going to be doing, we will try and concentrate on the big item issues, and then from there we'll go on to the brief decision on the draft decision on the generation. And if ever there are any things that members would like for us to change, we can also take that into consideration and make changes ready for us to be presenting them at the meeting on Friday. So after the generation, then Chairperson, we will take the NTCSA as a separate company, and then it will then also be followed by the distribution. But also, Chair, we would like to also ask for your indulgence in that we had a meeting with the National Treasury yesterday regarding the issues around the carbon tax, and some matters were actually clarified. So I would like at the end, after we've done all the three businesses, to just give feedback on that carbon tax and what might be our proposal. But obviously we don't have the documents ready for that, but at least to give you what kind of thinking we're having pending us finalizing. We did also receive some written and some calculations coming from National Treasury itself. So there has been progress in that regard. And that's why also the numbers, especially on that particular one, are bound to be changing. The others can be changing only when members actually direct us on a particular path. We've had several ins and outs with you members in terms of the internal workshops. We will try to be as detailed, but also taking into account that you as members have seen that, but the detail will only allow for the stakeholders to understand the kind of thinking that we are having. So, Chair, we'll start as we say, we start with generation, and we normally would start with the regulatory asset base. Even Tate Thabo Chabalala, you can come in, please, and also make sure that all the issues that have been dealt with or maybe are guided by the members are dealt with, so that we don't actually take too much time for the conclusion on each section. And with that, maybe then we can call on Usizvui to then be ready with the primary energy, and then I'll call the others as we go. Thank you, Thabo. You can come in guided by the chairperson. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. So I'll be taking the members through the generation rev section. So in terms of this one, Eskom has applied for closing values of from 1.1 trillion, 0.2 and 0.2 again for the application year. So these closing balances are largely driven by existing fixed assets in the form of depreciated replacement cost values. So the other components which are making up the REB include your transfers to commercial operation, your work under construction, working capital, your asset purchases, and all of these are actually net of assets funded upfront by the customers. So in getting to a REB decision on this one, the elements were analyzed individually. In as much as I've indicated that this value is largely driven by the DRC. That's the first element that we have assessed. And then in calculating this DRC, the depreciated replacement cost, NASA followed 3 or 4 step sort of process in alignment with the revaluation report that was supported. The first step was the calculation of the replacement cost new values, and this is based on the overnight cost assumptions. And members, these assumptions can be found on table 6, which is on page 24. And then furthermore, for the calculation of the replacement cost new, we can see that table 7 on the same RFD for generation highlights the units that ESCOM expects to be productive during the application period. Hence, these are the units that have been included in the REP value. So the second step would be the adjustment of the replacement cost new values with the accumulated depreciation. And this was done in line with the useful life study, which was also then submitted with the asset revaluation report in 2020 by ESCOM. And then thirdly, there is also an adjustment for what we term technical obsolescence. And this is actually just based on the concept of excess maintenance. It's actually another form of depreciation over and above accumulated depreciation, which actually then recognizes that there would be a loss in value or usefulness of a plant, which would be caused by inefficiencies or inadequacies, such as excess capitalization due to reasons such as cost overruns, etc. And then finally, where plants have reached the end of life that are both non-operational. So what we've done on this one, we've said that plants that have reached the end of life and are non-operational have been excluded for the purposes of earning a depreciation and return. So the steps outlined are actually outlined on page 10, on table 10, which is from page 28 of 128. So that was the first element, which is making up the DRC. The second element, which is also again the biggest element making up the ESCOM RAP. The second element making up the RAP would be the transfers to commercial operation. The recommendation on this one, Chairperson, is to disallow these transfers. And the main reason is that when revaluing the asset base, these would have been taken into account. But over and above that, the nature of the capital expenditure emanating from these transfers have warranted that perhaps these should be excluded. And the extensive reasons have then been provided from paragraph 7.1.28 to 7.1.35 in the RFD itself. And then the other big element, Chairperson, which is the third element making up the RAP, would be your work under construction. On this one, the work actually comprises, the work under construction actually comprises of previously incurred and future capital expenditure for the application period. So on this one, in assessing that those capital expenditure requirements, only capex relating to capacity expansion has been recommended and capitalized, and this is actually guided by section 9.6 of the MYPD methodology. So the extensive reasons actually on this particular section have been covered from paragraph 7.1.36 to 7.1.42. And then lastly, Chairperson, the other smaller element, which is your net working capital asset purchases, which is then net of the assets funded upfront by customers, have also been covered from section 7.1.43 to 7.1.59 in the RFD. Maybe just finally on this one, Chairperson, just to mention, to say that in line with all the adjustments that have been undertaken on the REP itself, the depreciation has been actually then adjusted to match those adjustments. I'd like to leave it here for now. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Makubane, on primary energy.
afternoon. Apologies, Chair. Good afternoon, Chairperson and the board members as well as colleagues. I will then take you through the primary energy, and we'll touch on the production plan as well. So Eskom has made the application based on a planned performance of an EAF of 63, 64, and 65%, with UCLFs declining from 25% to 23% over the application period, as shown on table 36. Eskom was requested to revise their production plan based on an improved performance, given their utterances of the recovery plan yielding some results. And Eskom provided a sensitivity analysis on the basis of an improvement in the EAF by 1.5% for each year of the application, with the PCLF remaining the same and the UCLF declining accordingly. And so the plan was also based on the sales remaining the same. So it didn't have much of a difference in terms of the output of the production plan, except the improvement of the utilization of the coal fleet, which then allows for more room to deal with any additional demand that may come up. Eskom has not reproduced their production plan on the basis of a 75% EAF and a higher demand as requested. Nevertheless, Eskom is being set at a performance standard of an EAF of 75% and a PCLF of 10 and a UCLF of 13% over the application period, and this is highlighted on page 37, or rather on table 37 on page 69. This is premised on the ERA section 15.1 that entitles only an efficient licensee to recover its costs and a margin. This target is also based on benchmark resources that we have had a look at, as well as a benchmark analysis that we did perform in partnership with Sanedi. Furthermore, Eskom indicated during the public hearing that their recovery plan is targeting an EAF of 65% within the FY24 period and reaching 70% from FY25. And this will be done by prioritizing 8 stations and focusing on reducing their UCLF. And then lastly, the energy regulator is guiding that the demand forecast be revised upwards. And so the production plan, as well as the relevant primary energy line items, have been revised accordingly, although manually in the absence of a production plan from Eskom. In terms of the primary energy elements, just a correction on table 40, on page 71, the coal decision numbers are not in line with the table 49 numbers, slight differences in those numbers, and that will be corrected. Apologies for that. I think a revision of that table used a prior version. So in terms of the coal usage numbers, Eskom applied for 93 billion, 96 billion and 89 billion over the application period for coal burn to generate 159 terawatt hours, 149 terawatt hours, and 126 terawatt hours over the period. The coal usage decision can be seen on table 49 on page 80. So the coal energy output has been adjusted upwards due to the increase in projected demand, the reduction of the generation from OCGTs, the removal of renewable projects from bid window 5, as well as the removal of all bid window 8 projects in FY28. And so that gives effect to the adjustments to the production plan, as well as the adjustment to the coal generation. So the coal costs were benchmarked against export coal prices, which ranged between 1.5 and 1.9 rands per ton, 1,000 rand per ton, and Eskom's costs then fell below that. The benchmark coal costs that will be utilized at RCA stage are therefore set at the rate as applied by Eskom per contract type, and these can be found on table 51 on page 18. Coal costs were also adjusted for a burn rate of an average of 0.6 kilograms per kilowatt hour. An analysis was done by RAR to get an understanding of the factors contributing to the burn rates. The analysis showed that the factors contributing to burn rate of a coal unit include boiler design, boiler aging, wear and tear, a change in coal quality, operating conditions, etc. It also highlighted that the burn rate does decline over time. Further benchmarks were done with the assistance of Sanedi of the Eskom burn rate against BRICS utilities and showed that they range between 0.45 and 0.6 kilograms per kilowatt hour. And so given the age of the Eskom fleet, we found it prudent to set an efficient target of 0.6. So the adjustment on the coal costs is therefore based on the volumes of coal burn, as well as a burn rate of 0.6 kilograms per kilowatt hour. If I'm to touch on the fuel oil usage has been adjusted as per table 62 on page 88. The volumes being applied for over the MYPD6 period are much higher than the volumes previously consumed under similar performance levels. The benchmark data shows that utilities typically use minimal fuel oil, and so the Eskom usage is found to be much higher than a typical coal plant. Eskom was requested to provide the assumptions of the number of startups as well as the combustion support incidences that resulted in the fuel volumes being requested. You will remember that in the production plan section, Eskom is being set a target of 75% EAF and UCLF of 13% for the application period. This better performance must result in less automatic trips and therefore a reduction in fuel oil consumption. Further, the improvement in performance should also make the need for flame stabilization less, and therefore the correction has been applied on the fuel oil volumes. The adjustment made is conservative, as it is also taking into account the current operations of the coal fleet to respond to the shape of the residual demand, which requires the coal fleet to operate at minimum stable level during the day when solar plant output is at its peak. And then touching on the OCGTs, the OCGC adjustment can be seen on table 66 on page 94. The OCGT load factor has been reduced from 6% to 4% due to the excessive cost of diesel. However, it is understood that the need for flexibility has increased with the rise of renewable penetration in the energy mix. It must be noted that the energy mix has changed drastically when comparing 2016 and now. A 30% drop in renewable contribution in 2016 resulted in some 600 megawatts to be picked up by dispatchable technologies. However, today, the same drop results in more than 3,000 megawatts that must be picked up by dispatchable technologies, particularly flexible ones that can ramp up quite fast. The use of additional OCGTs is not just a matter of compensating for poor performance by the coal fleet, but also to deal with additional flexibility that the system now requires. A 6% load factor of OCGT gives the usage of 1.5 hours per day, while the 4% gives an hour's use per day. And then just to indicate that Eskom did confirm that they buy their diesel at wholesale prices and that they do receive some discounts based on negotiations as well as tax rebates. But though the tax rebates were not included in the forward-looking projection, as they've had some challenges claiming this in previous years, it does come back though during the RCA as a clawback. Chairperson, if I can stop there, I don't know if you want me to touch on the other primary energy components, or I can stop there.
You can stop here, and I think the ones that you touched on are the most important ones, and we take the documents as having been read. We can move on to the next one. The OPEX. Who's dealing with the OPEX?
It's the OPEX, Chairperson, followed by maintenance. It's dealt with by Maria and the team. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. All right.
Good afternoon, Chair, members and colleagues. In terms of operating costs under GX, Eskom is applying for a total of 55.8 billion in the first year of the application, followed by 55.86 billion in the second year and 58.2 in the last year of the application. This is coming, Chair, from a base of 32.7 billion that was approved by NERSA in financial year 2025. The main ticket items under operating costs are mainly maintenance with an application of 21.7 billion in the first year. Other operating costs applying for 14.5 billion in the first year, and employee benefit costs applying for 14.2% in the first year of the application. Moving on into detail with regard to employee benefit costs. In this line item, the three main contributing factors are staff complement, employee benefit increases, and level of remuneration. Eskom, in this under employee benefit cost, is applying for an increase of 33.33% in the first year of the application, and that is followed by a 4% increase, and lastly a 2.1% increase in the last year of the application. In the analysis, or in fact, when analyzing employee benefit costs, Eskom was benchmarked against itself by comparing generation employees to the nominal installed capacity in megawatt hour. And for MYPD6 control period, the result shows that Eskom is applying for a 3.7 megawatt hour per employee, and therefore when benchmarking Eskom against itself, Eskom intends then to produce less installed capacity with more employees for the MYPD6 period. In terms of how we adjusted and the reasons thereof, NERSA has considered inflationary adjustments plus salary betterment for employees under bargaining level, and we've applied a only inflationary adjustment for other employees, which falls under management level. The inflation adjustment was used in line with the requirements of the methodology. The adjustment that we've made are further supported by a benchmark which we did, that was a report published by 21st Century, which benchmarked South African salary increases trends. The report emphasized aligning with a benchmark of 6% salary increase to ensure competitiveness while maintaining affordability and sustainability. NERSA has, however, allowed a 7% salary increase, which is above the recommended benchmark, and this was to align with Section 10.4.2 of the MRPD4 methodology, which allows for inflation adjustments plus salary betterment. I'm going to skip maintenance, Chair. It will be addressed by either Sandile or Charles once I'm done. The next line item is other operating costs. In this line item, Eskom has applied for a 14.5 billion in the first year of the application, followed by 14.7 and then 15 billion in the last year of the application. There seems to be quite a significant increase in the first year of the application, and this increase was driven mainly by costs related to contractor costs, environmental expenses, net insurance expenses, consulting and travel costs, and other general expenses. the approach that we followed in this line under this line item, Chair, was to try and separate costs that are driven by inflation and those that are not. For those costs which are driven by inflation and believed to be within management's control, these costs have been adjusted in line with inflation, and we believe that costs related to these to the particular cost line items should be managed more efficiently by Eskom. Other costs which are not driven by inflation, such as insurance costs. These costs have been allowed, even though applied above inflation, they've been allowed, and this was taken into consideration, the aging generation fleet, as well as the maintenance activities that were postponed. This is also in line with the drive to improve Eskom's EAF. So under this line item, Chair, the adjustments have been tabled under table 29. That is on page 58 of the RFG. Moving on to the next line item, which is corporate overhead costs. The main cost drivers under corporate costs are costs related to employee benefit costs, other operating costs, and depreciation. For this particular line item, Chair, for the first year of the application, there's also quite a significant increase of 34%, followed by 4.9% in the second year and 2.53% in the last year of the application period. The main cost drivers related to corporate overhead costs include costs related to human resources division, costs related to Eskom's Academy of Learning, and costs related to group IT, which we've also seen quite a significant increase under that line item. Another line item under corporate, which was also increasing quite significantly, was under Eskom's Treasury Division. And for this particular cost, the costs mainly relate to legal costs expected during the current unbundling and legal separation process that is being undertaken by Eskom. In terms of the adjustments and the reasons for adjustments that we've made, so for a number of corporate divisions, other costs are increasing at levels which are significantly higher than inflation. Some of these costs are believed to be within management's control, and we believe should be efficiently managed, and thus have been adjusted. In relation to costs related to Eskom's legal separation of the generation and distribution division, we believe this is a legislative requirement, and therefore the costs related to this have been allowed, with the expectation that it would be a once-off cost to deal with the legal separation, legal business separation, and that the cost will then normalize once the separation is completed. With regard to employee benefit costs, the adjustments have been made in line with inflation and betterment adjustments, and this is in line with what the methodology requires. So, Chair, under this line item, the adjustments are tabled under table 32, and that's on page 61 of the RFD. That's where I'm going to end, Chair. I'll then hand over to either Sandile or Charles to take us through maintenance. Thank you, Chair.
Sandile or Charles, over to you, please.
Sorry, Chair. I was speaking to a closed mic. Okay. When it comes to maintenance, I would like to take members to page 49 on table 25. That is what Eskom has applied for, and we can see on the first financial year that actually there's a spike, and then it tends to subside as the MYPD period goes on. And upon analyzing this, we have seen that actually we realized that ESCOM has have been embarking on an extensive maintenance recovery plan, especially for the generation fleet itself. And we, as ESCOM has said during even the public hearings, that this has become a success, and this success can be contributed, actually can be because of the contribution sectors that the success of the recovery plan is the government-supported package that was enabled in order for the plants to be able to order long lead parts for the outages. And when we look at the methodology, the methodology says that the cost related to operating and maintenance will be allowed. However, there must be reasonableness of such expenses, and the energy regulator will determine as such. So further analysis we discovered that in its plan to recover generation plants, ESCOM ensured that they prioritized 8 power stations. And these 8 power stations, their priority was actually to put them on outage and ensure that they are worked on until they are at a stage where they can actually reduce maintenance as much as possible. And we have realized that within these plants as well, those that have gone through this priority plan, they have significantly reduced their breakdown maintenance, and hence we have considered this and allowed this cost. However, in conducting this recovery plan, it must be noted that there will be shortage of megawatts in the grid, and therefore ESCOM has undergone another drive to ensure that those units that were earmarked for shutdown, they are not shut down at this point in time, and there is 17 units actually that were earmarked for shutdown, but these will continue to run to ensure that any shortage in the plant will be supported, and also to avoid the load shedding, thereby ensuring the supply of electricity and ensuring that the EFF is not that much impacted. And further analysis have also seen that Kusile and Medupi have actually shown a much higher breakdown cost, which these are new plants, and according to new equipment that is purchased, it is inefficient to have these plants having so much breakdown, and hence we ensured that we earmarked this, benchmarked this with the station that have undergone the priority plan as well, to ensure that the breakdown plant for Medupi and Kusile are maintained at a certain level. And hence that is why we disallowed some amounts. If you go to the adjustment on page 50, page 51 on table 26, you will see those figures and the adjustments accordingly. And these adjustments are mainly for the Medupi and Kusile. And that was that for the generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jacobs. Charles, anything else to say?
No, I think that was very well covered by Sandile. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Sichotlo.
Yes, thanks, Chairperson. The last big item that we want to discuss on generation is on the depreciation. If we can just call again on Tab, but I will try to link it to the section that you did on RAP. That would be all from generation, and then we can take comments and questions from members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. In fact, after I had presented the RAP section, I had indicated that the reason I'm actually going to be touching on depreciation immediately afterwards is to highlight, to say that all the adjustments that were made under the REP, the depreciation has been similarly adjusted to align with all those changes that have been made, that have been effected to the REP. I think that's all I can say for now under depreciation. Thank you, Brian.
No, thanks, Chairperson. I'm fine with that. I don't know what is your direction. Do we go directly to questions and comments from members' guidance? Yeah, that would be all from the generation presentations. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I'd just like to give Mr. William Kize, maybe if he's got something to say quickly, and then we can then go to the comments, questions, and guidance part of this item.
No, Chairperson, thank you. Indeed, all the big ticket items under generation have been covered, which is mainly the primary energy, the REB, which primarily informs the return on assets, as well as the issue of primary energy. So, Chairperson, with that, I would say we can safely go on to the Q&A session, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkhize. Just like to say that I've just come in to stand in for Madam Maseti while she's sorting out something, and she will then resume chairmanship as soon as she's back. By show of hands, members, if you may just assist with questions, comments, and guidance. Mr. Bukula.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Mkhize, for me, I just want to start with this. This is not a question on what has been presented. When we were discussing the confidentiality or non-confidentiality of these numbers, unfortunately, we were live. I have just been made aware by people who are calling and saying, what is this? So I think, Chairperson, we just need to reiterate what you have said, that the numbers that are being presented, hence even the tables, are not final as yet. There are still changes. And I think even Mr. Sichotlo, when he started, said there are other changes that are going to be done on the carbon tax. So I just would like to bring that to the attention of the Chairperson, that we're live and we will need to really re-emphasize the point that there's nothing we're hiding, but we are not yet fine. And we will have to get our IT to really be clear about when we are live and when we are not live, because it doesn't help like this. And then, Chair, if you would allow me, I am fine with most of the presentation, but I think as it is customary in this, you got to read these documents twice before you kind of feel that you understand and you feel that. But just one comment I have on all of the tables. Table 24 on the NESA decision, we may have to rearrange that. I mean, it's got too many numbers, and for me, it's not clear what adds to what and what gets subtracted to what. So we need to arrange it so that it is readable. Otherwise, with the rest of the tables and the submission, I am comfortable. I think changes that would be required would be minor, and I think mainly the carbon tax would be one of those changes if it happens. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. I think Madam Maseti is back. She can then take over. Madam Maseti.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkhize, for standing in for me. I would like to take comments from the members, but also just to emphasize again, it may not have been clear to the stakeholders that we are at the subcommittee of the energy regulator. It is only the energy regulator that takes the final decision on these matters. So they're not delegated to the subcommittee for a final decision. And this is work under progress. And there are some areas that require some adjustments, and one of them being, or two of them being, the environmental levy as well as the carbon tax. And there are also other areas that need some adjustments. So it will not be possible to mention the figures and mislead the members of the public with regards to that, or to confuse them. So the decision will be taken by the energy regulator. Having said that, I would like to give Mr. Smanda an opportunity. Mr. Smanda.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the team. Chair, also largely comfortable with where we are landing in terms of the draft decisions on the various components. My comments are probably geared towards assisting with the RFD and just making sure that issues are clear and just to improve on the RFD. Perhaps I'll start with general comments and then I'll go to specific issues. The first issue that I wanted to raise, Chair, is just the use of language throughout the RFD, that perhaps we are better off aligning ourselves with the language of the Act. I'll give an example, and I'm not too sure whether this is what the language of the Act says, but on paragraph 2.23, for instance, we talk about avoiding an undue burden on ESCOM, and I wasn't quite clear. Perhaps we need to be much more specific, or at least try to use language that is in the Act, if that is not. The second issue, where we say that we've done an analysis, I think we should indicate such analysis, Chair, instead of just referring to analysis in general. I know in most instances we've actually undertaken the analysis, but for instance on page I think it's on page 33, where we say that we've undertaken a historical trend analysis of asset purchases, but I couldn't find that analysis. So it comes across as a general statement that we might have undertaken that analysis internally, but it's not shown in the RFD. So my suggestion is that wherever we refer to analysis that we've undertaken, let's show it in the RFD. And of course, there are issues of references and all of that where we cite studies, externally, but we don't footnote the various or we don't reference such studies, and so we just mention those in passing. So I'll say, please let's make sure that we footnote those. And of course, there's just general editing that needs to be done, Chair. I think Mr. Pugula, for instance, mentioned table 24. So if you look at that table, it's not clear in certain instances what the unit of measure is and whether those numbers are actually in thousands or in million or whatever. But let's make sure that we go through all the tables and fix those so that the reader is quite clear what's being presented in those different tables. Okay, maybe let me go back to talk about the maybe specific issues. Starting on page 2 of 128, on paragraph 2, we say that, referring to table 1, that further extensive prudency reviews, efficiency tests, and performance thresholds will be undertaken. And whereas in paragraph 2.23 and 2.26, we say we've undertaken prudence assessment. So let's again be consistent. It's either we've done the prudence assessment or we are yet to do it. But let's just be consistent throughout the document, Chair. So I'm not quite clear whether this is still to be done or we've actually undertaken it, as stated in paragraph 2.23 and 2.26. And then on 1.4 on page 9, on the work determination, I think perhaps we should just indicate that this is the work that was applied for, but not what was determined, because then ESCOM applied for a lower work. Perhaps in the main discussion, I think we do allude to that, but perhaps we need to also indicate it in the executive summary. And then per 1.6, the environmental levy. There, I think it's not yet clear, and Chair, maybe you did indicate that this is yet to be, this is still subject to adjustment, because table 1 on page 2 shows an adjustment, whereas the other table 2 on page 12 doesn't show an adjustment. So I wasn't quite clear there which table is correct, but maybe let's align those two tables, table 1 and table 2. And what I referred to on page 13, paragraph 2.7, we refer to a previous judgment against NESA, but we don't say what that judgment is. We don't footnote it. We don't indicate what was the case about. And maybe let's just footnote that judgment. And then, Chair, on page 32, where we refer to the stockpile days, there are two figures that are quoted. So paragraph 7.1.45 talks to a 45-day stockpile day as per stock day policy, whereas paragraph 7.3.50 talks to a 20-day a 20 stock day as well, in accordance with the grid code. So probably was not quite clear which stock day applies. Is it the 42 days or is it the 20 days as per the grid code or as per the stock day policy? Maybe some clarity there. I think on page 33, I mentioned the asset purchases, where we indicated that we've done a historical trend analysis. That's on paragraph 7.1.56, but that historical trend analysis, I couldn't find it. And then under assets funded upfront by customers, I think the numbers that we have there are actually for asset purchases and not for assets funded by customers. Please, let's double check paragraph 7.1.58. The figures that we have there, it's actually asset purchases. So there are instances where we set conditions for approval, and in some instances there are no conditions. But if you look on page 42, paragraph 7.1.83, we state that there are no conditions, but immediately after that we set a condition that ESCOM must meet National Treasury's conditions for the 254 billion equity injection. Yeah, and then there's this statement that we repeat several times under OPEX that most government entities have adopted cost containment measures, and that ESCOM should adopt the same mechanisms. And we repeat this in under several paragraphs, but we don't reference, or we don't give evidence as to how this has been done. And perhaps we need to reference the National Treasury cost containment guidelines. I think that would probably back up our statement, because as is, it's just a general statement that says most entities have adopted or have curtailed their expenses, but we don't back it up. So I'll suggest that we reference the National Treasury cost containment guidelines. And then on page 57, that table, not sure what table number it is. It's not well. It's actually figure. It says figure 3. I'm not sure. Yeah, if that's correct. But in any case, we have a comparison of the actuals, decision versus actuals, but that dates back to 2013 until 2021. I was just wondering whether we don't have most recent figures, because the most recent that we have there is 2021. Surely we should have figures up until at least 2023 for the decision versus actuals. And then lastly, Chair, under impact assessment, I was a bit unsure whether this is the right analysis that we are doing here. So we have two scenarios. We're comparing the ESCOM application, which is the 36.15 and for the first year up until the 9.10 for the third year. Then we compare that with inflation increases for the same period. And Chair, I'm not sure that is the correct comparison or analysis that we should be undertaking, because I thought that we should be comparing the impact of what ESCOM has applied for as against the decision that we are taking, because the inflationary increase, probably we could also include it, but for me, I don't think that's the primary, or that should be the benchmark that we are using to compare. I would have thought that we want to analyze or determine what the impact of our decision is compared to what has been applied for. So I wasn't too comfortable with what we are doing, Chair, under the impact, the economic impact analysis. Right from I think that's section 8 in the RFD, but all those models that we're doing there and comparing doing that inflationary analysis, I'm not sure if that's the correct route to take, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda, for the comprehensive comments and pointing out areas that may need thorough a look by the team. Mr. Mkhize, you may go ahead with your input.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'll start off by thanking the team for the work that has been done, effort in handling this matter, and say that I also concur with Mr. Sibanda on the issue of the economic impact modeling, to say, let's look at our decision, because that is now, it also becomes the value add of regulation vis-a-vis the decision, without necessarily saying that we should not also look at a comparison with the inflation. I I must also say that there's been a point that I've been harping on of a synchronized approach to looking to assessing this application by way of saying that if for example, is saying that the EAF, there must be EAF of 75%. That then needs to be synced with the OCGT usage, the maintenance, and I noted, for example, under paragraph 7.2.32, that the team emphasized that point, which I think is very much helpful, so that there is a consistency in terms of how we go about with the assessment of this application. With regard to the comments from my side, I would start off by saying that further comments on my side. I start off by saying that, on right on paragraph, I think 7, it's right at the beginning, where we're talking of an application. I think it's paragraph 2, where we're talking of the decision, where we say we subject the cost to further extensive prudence. I think maybe if you can say that we may, if there is no concrete plan already in place to do that, I think that will be better. It's as a way of indicating our commitment or undertaking in this regard. If it remains that we will, then please may please have firm plans so that we can then duly execute that. And then on I think the paragraph, I think 1.2, if we just be very clear to outline this MYPD 6 period so that it is understood by the reader more clearly. And then when I go to, just want to get it. Yeah, the tables, I think a lot, my colleagues have already said about things about the tables. I don't want to repeat, but if I look at table 7, for example, on ESCOM operable units, I think some brief narrative to explain the table will greatly assist in that regard. The same goes with the table, I think there is a table there. I don't think that there is a numbering, maybe just missing from my side. It's supposed to be table 9, where you can just be clear in terms of the original commissioning date and ESCOM decommissioning date. Those years, the way you're writing them out, like if you look at 1988 versus 2043, just to make that one clear for the reader. And also, I would like to get clarity there, because I think that there was a revised decommissioning date after that. If you can just make sure that the date that is there is the latest date, it is synchronized. And then on the exclusion, because you talk of the exclusion under 7.1.24, just to check if this is a fair exclusion and acceptable in accounting and asset valuation terms. The exclusion of plants that have reached end of life and those that are non-operational, both from earning a return and depreciation, respectively. And then when it comes to the under 7.1.46, it comes to the stockpiling. Just to ensure that maybe there's no double jeopardy suffered by the licensee here, ESCOM, if there is any advantage that they then claim, whether it's now or in the future, regarding the stocks being already there to use and not having to ship them in or truck them in. I think that should just be borne in mind going forward. And then on the under 7.2.80, there is you talk here of depreciation costs that are significantly increasing and with no justification. But then you don't indicate what then is our recommendation regarding this as an output of our analysis. If you can just make sure that you cover that. There are other minor comments that I'm going to provide to the, I'm gonna email it to Mr. Mkhize just to share it with Mr. Mkhize so that they can incorporate them in the final document. I don't think that they are that much substantive as to alter the decision in any case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize, and thank you to all the members for pointing out areas that require some further attention and enhancements from the team. Let me check before I get to the decision part. Let me check if Mr. Sichotlo, you have two things to say regarding clarity. But all of the other issues raised are really issues of enhancements which the team must attend to. Mr. Sichotlo.
No, thanks, Chairperson, once more. I think, Chairperson, we take the guidance. I think it was very comprehensive, and we'll make sure as far as possible that by tomorrow, when we send the documents out, that we have actually dealt with these comments that we've received from the members, and they are well appreciated, Chairperson. And we'll try to clean up the document, especially the tables that because a lot of them are coming from the tables, to be honest. I don't have anything, Chair. You can discuss with other things now.
I'm trying to unmute. All right. Thank you very much, members. I would like to take the members to the decision that is sought today, and that decision is subject to the corrections and the areas of enhancements that the members have pointed out today, and also just to remember that there's also adjustments, specific adjustments that were indicated by the team to the committee. So with those adjustments, as well as the areas of enhancements, our members then happy to support the decision that the electricity subcommittee recommends to the energy regulator to approve the revenue that is determined by the team from NERSA, with the adjustments that still need to be made, as well as the enhancements. By show of hands, members, if you are happy to support that decision, recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I support as well. Thank you, is it Advocate Sitole? Advocate Sitole, thank you. Mr. Smanda, are you happy to support? And thank you, Ms. Mbongose. Thank you, members, for the decision. Mr. Smanda, I didn't see your hand.
Chair, I wasn't too sure as a non-member of ELS whether I could.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's supposed to be the members of the committee. I am sorry about that. I must just confirm for the record. It is Mr. Pukula who supported, I supported, Mr. Mkhize supported, as well as Advocate Sitole. So those are the members of the subcommittee that voted on the matter. Thank you very much, Mr. Smanda, for reminding me about that. Members, I'm looking at the time without pressurizing the members. Mr. Mkhize, may I take it that it is a legacy hand? Okay, let's move on to the next matter. Let's take it as having been read. The next one is an application for the revenue for the transmission business of NTCSA. Please, colleagues, try to be concise on this one, and the team members, they already know who is supposed to come in and explain their areas in a concise manner. If you can kindly do so. We already have the overall introduction here. Let's call upon the team to introduce their matters.
Yeah, Chair, we start with the regulatory asset base, and it's Sibusiso Zungu that will do that. And so just so that we are quick enough, it will be followed by OPEX and maintenance and then depreciation in that order, Chairperson. Mr. Zungu?
Good afternoon, members, colleagues, and everyone on the call. So I will take you through to the REP application by NTSA. So basically, the application starts on table number 4, whereby the closing REP values is 131 billion for FY 2026, 161 billion FY 2027, and 191 billion for FY 2028. So the biggest ticket items that formulates those closing REP values are asset transfer to commercial operation, of which, according to the application, it was 29.5 billion for FY 2026 and 52.2 billion for FY 2027 and 87.63 billion for FY 2028, followed by work under construction, which is about 24.3 billion for FY 2026, 36.7 billion FY 2027, and 37.5 billion for FY 2028. There are other aspects that form the REP, like the net working capital, asset purchases, and asset funded upfront by customers. But I will just touch base on those two big ticket items. I will start with the capital expenditure, which is work under construction, of which, according to the NTSA application, it applied for 96 billion as its total capex over the period. So the formulation of that 96 billion, 75.9 billion, it emanates from strengthening and expansion capex, and then followed by asset replacement or asset refurbishment capex of 15.3 billion, environmental impact assessment and servitude, which is a total of 3.6 billion, and then production equipment, which is about 1.3 billion. So in terms of the RFD, the fixed assets that were transferred to commercial operation are on tables 8 and 9 and under page 29 of the RFD. After I have done a prudency assessment and then after having requested for additional information from the NTSA to satisfy ourselves to say what are actually these assets that will be transferred to commercial operation, we then took a decision or made a recommendation as indicated on those two tables 8 and 9. Then when I move to the biggest ticket item, whereby even there was a public outcry about the capex of 96 billion. So the approach that we took is solely based on tables number 10 and 11, which start on page 31 of in the RFD. We use the historic approach basically to say from the MYPD period, we can say that 41.8 billion was allowed under the 5-year period of the MYPD3 in favor of the NTSA, but only 22.3 billion that the NTSA managed to utilize with an under expenditure of 19.6 billion. We also look at the recent historic performance, which start from FY 2018-19 up until the RCA application of FY 2022-2023. According to that table, we can say that there was an expenditure of 34% of the allowed capex. Then we use that as a basis to determine the level of strengthening and expansion capex that NTSA can utilize. So basically, our adjustments were based on number of consideration. One of the consideration was to say every time the NTSA brings in its application, it always relies on the transmission development plan. But however, for the past 10 years, it has never managed maybe to execute all projects that it applied for. And also, we also write to NTSA to say, can you please give us comfort to say, maybe in terms of your project management skills, in terms of your skill set, what is this that you will do differently this time? They did respond, of which it also their response also forms part of the RFD. Also, one of the emerging concern was that some of the line have been under construction for more than 10 years, of which in that regard, they're earning a return while assets are not even transferred to commercial operation. Using those bases and then the analysis, and then that was based on the MYPD methodology, then we took a decision that is on page 42 on table number 14 under work or the CAPEX decision. I think, Chairperson, I've covered all the key ticket items, and then conclude by saying that the decision is on table number 17. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Charles, do you have anything to add on this one?
No, I've got nothing to add on this one. Thank you. I wasn't involved.
All right, thank you very
really
much.
with-
Okay, that's fine. On ancillary services.
Thank you, Chair. The ancillary services on table 18 on page 51 shows the table of the costs that have been applied for by the NTCSA for ancillary services, and it's quite a substantial increase from previous years, and there's three main items that are responsible for that. The one is the reserves IPP, the system operators, putting out a standard offer program to ask for IPPs to contribute to reserves, and that they would be remunerated for. Then similarly, there's the reactive power and voltage control. They have done studies which show that they need reactive compensation at various points in the network as the network expands because of the introduction of extra EHV lines. And then the third major item is the energy imbalance, which is a new item where they have applied to the regulator separately to have the curtailment charges included as a ancillary service. With regard to the first item, the reserves, they have done studies to determine how much reserves that they need, and with the application of renewable energy sources, which vary a lot more than the old rotating plant, to have come up with a table, excuse me, and of the reserves required, which is in table 20. And they've determined that the Eskom plant is not able to meet all the requirements that they have, so they're going out with a standard offer for that. The problem is that this requires a Section 34 determination concurrence, and that is still in progress. So far as that is concerned, it's obvious that it won't be completely ready for application in the year 25-26. And on that basis, these costs have been phased in over the period. When I say phased in, I mean they've been reduced in the beginning because it's also the first time that this has gone out, and it is a pilot program, and there is some questions about what the response will be. Will they find a response? So far as the costs are concerned for this, I did do research to see that what the prices were overseas for ancillary services, and the service prices that they have in their standard offer seem to be within a reasonable bound. The next one is the SCO, the voltage control, and the voltage control and reactive power components. These, when looked at, were related to 7 SCO installations which are scheduled for commissioning on the power system. But these are not in place at the moment, and they'll only be in place basically in the 27-28 or the 28 year for use. So that is when the costs were allowed. So far as the energy imbalance is concerned, in the application to NERSA, the separate application to NERSA for this ability for these costs to be included in as ancillary services, they said that there was a study done and it would be limited at a certain amount, and that is the amount which these costs have been limited to. And the decision is
not hearing Charles.
Sorry, the final decision is on page 56 in table 21. So far as the demand response is concerned, that is being covered by Ezekiel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. May I then open up the submission to the members of the committee for your input, your comments? Mr. Sichotlo, are you adding before I...
Yes, Chair, I made a mistake, Chairperson. I missed the IPPs and international purchases. And the IPPs will be done by Kulan, international purchases by Dr. Kasher. Sorry about that.
All right, may they please present quickly? I'm giving them 3 minutes each.
Thank you, Chairperson. Afternoon, everyone. Eskom has applied for 66 billion for the 2026 financial year, 77 billion for the 2027, and 109 for the 2028 IPPs for the MYPD6 financial years. We looked at bid window 5, and we discovered that NERSA has 25 licensed IPP projects, and Eskom has included 12 from those 25 projects. And from the 12 projects, however, 11 only reached financial close. And then we adjusted the one project that did not reach financial close. And in terms of bid window 7 and bid window 8, we looked at the timelines from the IPP office, and they indicate that most projects take about 22 months to reach financial close. So it is highly unlikely that energy from bid window 7 will be online by October 2027. So we adjusted bid window 7, and we have disallowed bid window 8 because energy from bid window 8 will not be online during the MYPD6. So the recommendation of the decision is on page 65 of 68. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Klaczek.
Good afternoon to members and the public. Regarding the international energy purchases, Chairperson, these are existing contracts from Kaurapasa, Gigawatt Manpower, Sub Market, and Lesotho. So in the application, these are shown on table 22 on page 57. The amounts that NTCSA is applying for is 10.2, 9.7, and 13.6 billion. The assessment, Chairperson, is followed the methodology section 13.1, which covers long-term contracts and cross-border IPPs. Chairperson, the tariffs are reviewed every 5 years using awarded cost of Eskom generation, and these are then escalated with CPI. The last review was done in 2023, and the next one will be done in financial year 2028. So this would affect the last quarter of that last year of MYPD 6. Chairperson, the international purchases projects are still cost effective when compared to local IPPs and those projects that are producing firm capacity. So our recommendation, Chairperson, is on table 23. Table 23. And that's the recommendation to the energy regulator, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, may we then provide guidance on this one, the transmission revenue that is required, and the analysis done. By show of hands, members, if you have any input, guidance. Thank you. Mr. Bukula, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, for me, it's on the table around the capital expenditure. And I think on the capital expenditure, I'm trying to just get to that table now. We may have cut too deep, and I would recommend that we review the reductions, especially in the expansion, because when we say we've used the historic basis for the counter argument has always been for Eskom that the monies that were allocated to them were always taken over by generation because there was a crisis in generation, so they were never really able to use the monies. The second counter that we would have if we have that reduction is that we will also be seen as not allowing for transmission to expand to connect the different IPPs. So if we allow IPPs on the one hand, but we don't allow the transmission on the other hand, we may not be seen to be doing the right thing. So we may need to backload that if we think transmission at this stage does not have the capacity to do that. We may need to have lower amounts in the first year, but increase it over the years. But we also need to take into consideration Eskom's ability to spend. I mean, currently they are sitting on 40 billion rand. That's really their ability, and maybe at best we should say that. I mean, this is as old. So we should say that we allow them to double. So, but I haven't done the calculations to make a recommendation. But I think what we have in that table that Mr. Zungu showed, we have cut too deep, and I think we shouldn't cut that deep. Thank you, Chairperson. The rest, I think it's the little bits and pieces that we are going to clean up as we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Mr. Mkhize.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenters for this section. For me, when it comes to this one, I think I concur with what Mr. Pukula has said. In fact, I had extensive discussions with Mr. Zungu around this matter, and then it was we then just agreed that for the benefit of everyone, let's leave it open for discussions during the meeting. The same sentiments echoed by Mr. Pukula that 34% or 35% in table 13 is the problem is that it's not in sync with what we would expect from the NTCSA in terms of them being able to, having to execute the CAPEX program. I was even thinking that if if we're to stick at the 34%, then we need to maybe to look at a 40 and a 50, looking at at increasing that, because we incentivize them to have transmission capacity, which is in sync with the government imperatives or the imperatives of the country to ensure that there is a capacity to bring in IPPs, etc. Alternatively, I was also saying that we need to closely monitor the CAPEX program and have reopeners around reviewing in line with the progress that we see, and give them some level of benefit of the doubt in this regard, especially also noting that now there are a standalone subsidiary and not necessarily a division of ESCOM. So again, it's something that I think needs to be reworked. The other thing that I looked at is when it comes to the maintenance part, there is this issue of asset replacement or refurbishment CAPEX. I think it's under 7.1.53 as being under B there. To say, just to give us assurance that none of it may be considered as repairs and maintenance. And also that the assets that are not used and usable are not still considered as part of the asset base that are to be replaced. For me, it becomes a timing issue, because if those assets are already not used and usable until such time that they are replaced, or it could be that they shouldn't be in the asset base to start off with as things stand right here and now. So to say that we need to look at that. And also, I think there was an argument that that was provided by the analyst under 7.1.75 to in terms of the written response by ESCOM. But I think that maybe there's a need also for further probing in terms of also looking at the capacity to execute, especially also citing issues that in the past, because there were division, some of the money could have been diverted to other units that are seen to be more priority, like generation, like as Mr. Pugula said. So it's to look at all those nuances so you can come up with a better figure. I do accept that this 35% is reasonable in the sense that it's history, but that history needs to be qualified so that one can get to a figure that is fair on both sides. I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Sibanda.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the team. Chairperson, I think members are quite, aligned on this CAPEX issue. I know probably I would have also have harped on the on NTCSA's ability to deliver on this substantial uplift in CAPEX. But I get a sense that we've probably moved from the one extreme initially, where we were going to approve 100% of the CAPEX, to the other extreme, where we're now considering about 34%, which I also feel probably is a bit low, on the low side. Basically, I think the fact that we are only basing our decision on historical performance might give a sense that we have not taken into account the changes that are likely to occur within NTCSA going forward. And so I think that aspect, Chair, needs to be balanced and not just rely on historical performance, but also take into account what the changes that are likely to occur or the indications that NTCSA has given us that they will be in a position to execute much larger projects as opposed to what they've done in the past. So I'm just aligning myself to what the members have probably already said, that let's relook into the capex issue and probably just have a balanced approach to it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Members, thank you for your input. May I also just check the members maybe on 2 points? One is the steep increase on maintenance, about 49% increase that is requested by NTCSA, just from the perspective of affordability and sending the right signals in terms of the extent of increases. I was wondering if members would also have a view with regard to that steep increase and the reasonableness, not only from a perspective of the entity, but also from a perspective of the customers as well, because it's not only going to be those benefiting from the what you call the renewable energy, but there's a majority of customers in this country that are not necessarily benefiting from renewable energy. So the increase that is meant also for stability and reliability of the system. Is it fair to allow an increase of 49% for maintenance that needs to be undertaken for such factors and the other factors that are mentioned by Eskom and NTCSA? So that is the first one. The other one that I just wanted to check with the members is to see how the team can actually also just adjust its or to enhance is that issue of the capex. Whether perhaps the team could look into putting measures that will ensure that the revenue that is approved for NTCSA, the actual capex, is spent actually by NTCSA for expansion of the grid. As the regulator, what measures would, from your side, propose that we also include in the decision or reasons for decision, so that we make sure that the revenue is ring-fenced and it will be used specifically for the expansion of the grid. Otherwise, then it will be a problem if it is used for other purposes, as we have done, as we have seen in the past. I think for me, those are also two important points to consider, members. Mr. Sichotlo, maybe if you can just one or two questions that were asked, but others are really as guidance there, especially on the capex. If you can say one or two things, I will also allow members who may want to weigh in on the issue of the ring fencing or measures to be that will ensure that NTCSA uses the capex for expansion of the grid. Mr. Sichotlo.
No, Chair. I think on the capex one, we do take that guidance and we'll have a look at it. Mr. Zungu, I think, has heard that. But there was also the issue on the maintenance. And I think that part is going to be done by Ubab Sandile. So Sandile, if we can just look at that and then update that section for when we come back to the members, that this matter has been dealt with and guidance that has been provided has been taken into account. Apart from that, I would say no, maybe we are fine from here.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me allow Mr. Pugula to weigh in.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think on the matter of ring fencing the funds, to a large extent, it has always also been our failure as the regulator not to take ESCOM to task when they take the funds that we have given them to do something, and then they go and do something else. So I think we also need to just re-emphasize that, but largely it's also been our failure. So when we lift it up and talk about it, I think they would also know that we most likely won't fail. On the maintenance, we kind of have to get also the confirmation from ESCOM that when you are going to go on a big capital expenditure like this, you also can't be also going big on maintenance, because you are going to have your resources spread thinly. You are also going to be having too many things that you are doing to a point that we haven't seen from the past. And we have seen when ESCOM generation, or ESCOM as a whole, went on to building 2 big power stations, that they didn't keep an eye on the other stations that were there, that we now are relying on, that they must work properly. So I think we may not have to allow the 50% or 49% maintenance, but I don't think we should cut it to the bone, or we should have that approach of saying we are going to give you this much for this year, and next year we are going to check what you have done, and then we will adjust accordingly. I know that the MYPD, it must have an allowance like that. If we put there are certain thresholds even on the SECA account, that you can't just carry on like you given money and you don't use it, and we'll wait for 3 years to make corrective action on that. Thank you, Chair. That's my input.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pugula. Mr. Mkhize.
Thanks. I'm largely covered by Mr. Pugula, because for me the emphasis is on having a synchronized analysis, like I said earlier on, that consistency, that golden thread running through, where some of the things that are generally viewed as mutually exclusive are taken as such, where you will go through a very big or a mega expansion project, and then at the same time you are doing maintenance. That's hugely unlikely, especially as we've seen the history of performance in this regard, as well as the sheer demand from the resources and the need to have whatever assets that are there to squeeze the last ounce of blood in them whilst one is busy with the expansion, and then look at maintenance thereafter. Just that kind of synchronization for me is important. And regarding the issue of ring fencing, following up, for me, we've got enough ammunition legally and in terms of the methodology to do exactly that, and require maybe frequent reporting, whether we've got even those quarterly reports or 6-month report. Is going to be important to do that, to ensure that we keep track thereof. And though we're looking at a 3-year issue, I've already raised the issue of reopeners, where we look and see if there's any need for adjustment, because we need not wait for the whole period to be over before there's some kind of adjustments that are able not to keep the consumer bleeding unduly so. The same would also apply to the licensee, being ESCOM in this case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members, for that input. It is well appreciated. The team, you already have some guidance there with regards to the CAPEX, the extent of adjustment. You need to revisit the extent of adjustment, and also with the money that, or the revenue that is allowed for the CAPEX, it must be it is something that needs to be monitored carefully, and making sure that there's something that is stated that it will be used solely for the purpose that it was granted by the energy regulator. And also just to make sure that you look into the capacity of Eskom in terms of execution of maintenance, and also just make sure that you keep an eye on the maintenance regime or philosophy when it comes to the transmission, and look into the provisions of our methodology, in particular the CACA, which will allow some adjustments, but that must also be informed by the capacity of NTCSA in executing this huge maintenance. At the same time, it requires to undertake new projects. So, and there are also other adjustments that the members have proposed. With that said, members, I would like to go to the decision that is sought. The decision that is sought is that the Electricity Subcommittee recommends to the energy regulator the revenue that is calculated and determined by the electricity team, subject to the comments and enhancements as read out and summarized by the chairperson. By show of hands, members, if you are in support of that recommendation decision. Thank you, Mr. Bukula. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Thank you, Advocate Sitole. I also support it. Thank you very much, members. Members, we are now on the sort of last item under the revenue application. We are now at the distribution arm of Eskom business. Please introduce and take less time on this one. There are areas that will need some emphasis. Mr. C. Chotlo, you may call upon your team.
Yeah, Chair, I concur with you, because most of the discussions that have been done on generation and transmission will actually be common, even for distribution. The one matter that has not been discussed in this meeting, specifically for distribution, would be the one on the sales. If I can just call on Tabi Singh, but having taken into account that this matter has been discussed in the workshops a number of times, Tabi Singh, if you can just be efficient with the presentation. I think if we can deal with that, and then we can take other comments from members if there's something else that maybe is unique to the distribution, apart from that one of the sales, Chairperson. Are you doing that, or is it Mr. Mutsav? Might be mixing the two.
Thank you, Mr. Hloro. I'm the one available.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Mutsav, and we will also invite Mark Bear to also weigh in, also with regards to the evidence that is before the energy regulator, which was analyzed and informed the assessment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, colleagues. NERSA has taken a decision to revise the sales forecast upwards post-load shedding, and on expectations of a moderate increase in electricity prices. NERSA believes at the end of load shedding in 2024, combined with a moderate to low price increase in the 2025 to 2026 financial year, and that it could lead to a significant rise in sales on the basis of a number of economic factors that have been considered by NERSA. So consequently, NERSA has adopted the upper trend of the forecast that is depicted in section 7 of the RFD. The MYPD methodology stipulates the principle that Eskom sales volume forecast assumptions must reflect current conditions of the market at the end of the application. and should take into account the most recent actual volumes. Eskom's sales focus depict 3 scenarios as reviewed in its application, and that has been referred to as the cone of uncertainty. And that all these 3 scenarios are declining, albeit at different rates. However, NERSA has considered the optimistic scenario driven by factors such as load shedding that is just ended, to which we have marked post 250 days since 2024, and also in anticipation of a moderate price increase in the future, and a modest economic growth prospects that are forecasted in the outlook, and the expectations of extreme weather conditions that could actually boost the demand for electricity in the outlook. There's also an expectation that given that electricity supply is stabilized, there's an expectation that the appetite, by heavy users of power to invest in renewables might also dwindle. And there's also an expectation that output from embedded generation projects could be affected by declining investment in that area, and that there's an expectation that demand could be boosted by new customer projects and connections that could be realized in the outlook, as well as growth in demand driven by urbanization and population increases, among other factors. So NERSA anticipates continued reliability of electricity supply, new connections, and other distributors. All these factors, in NERSA's view, will drive increased electricity consumption aligned to the optimistic scenario that is before the committee. Electricity consumption is predicted based on positive economic outlook and a decline of appetite for renewables due to improved power supply, while increased confidence in the investment climate will lead to greater capacity utilization, particularly in the mining and manufacturing sector. On the basis of these facts, Madam Chair, NERSA is of the view that the upper side of the cone of uncertainty is a more plausible prediction of Eskom sales. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mutsau. Mr. Bear, may you please weigh in also with to give members the comfort of the assessment insofar as the evidence that is before us.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Can I just confirm, as I'm joining via my phone, that I'm audible?
Yes, you are. You may proceed.
Okay. I mean, I will make two or three strategic inputs at this point. Number one, I think, is that with regard to the validation of the decision that we are recommending, number one is this price elasticity issue. And it's all very well to indicate that price elasticity is insensitive. However, what that doesn't address is how people then respond to it. And there are a range of elements to that in terms of the evidence we received from households indicating that it would mean spending less on food and more on energy, resulting in an overall reduction in household quality of life and standard of living, but also increased energy poverty in many instances, amongst other issues, which are not always just related to electricity, but electricity plays an important part. And there was evidence provided that shows that South Africa's lower income households are increasingly paying a greater percentage of their income on energy, which is a worrying trend, as it's not shown any leveling out. The other thing is when we come then to commercial users, there was a lot of very good evidence presented that showed that for commercial users, who have the opportunity of perhaps, for example, going to renewable energy as a solution, especially where they are largely operating during the daylight hours, where there is, in many instances, sufficient insolation. The evidence provided showed that already companies are making extreme savings by going over to renewable energy, which is then further decreasing demand and also impacting on the revenue of municipalities, for example. And that as the price increases, this is simply driving the positive economics of this substitution of the grid electricity for self-reliant renewable energy, to the extent that if the price increase is high enough, there's an incentive to actually disconnect altogether from the grid. With regard to large power users, a lot of evidence was provided to show the impact of that. And here, the reaction to that so-called inelasticity is the price sensitivity, that they do have an option. And that's an option just to close down the operation and move somewhere else. So we may not see that we see that as a reduction in demand, and that would not seem to make sense from an elasticity perspective, but it simply shows this is what's happening. And just since we had the public hearings, for example, Ferroglobe, I know that at their Polokwane smelter, they've instituted a Section 189, I think it's called, which is the first step in a retrenchment process as a result of the reduced economic viability of that particular smelter. So, and what the evidence has shown us is that there have been a number of large closures over historically. Some of the bigger ones amounting alone to about 8,000 megawatts of power that's been lost in terms of demand. But also in terms of where are we competitive? In all of the areas where I think it was only the FAPA members at this point, but operate. South Africa was the least competitive in all areas on electricity, and in many instances where we remained competitive as a producer of an alloy, it was largely because we had lower input costs on, for example, maybe labor or the raw materials, etc. But as that offset changes with the increase in the price of electricity, the overall competitiveness of those alloys falls away. And so you will start seeing, we can anticipate see the response from smelters like in Polokwane. So that's just a very brief comment on that. I think finally, this time around, we received some really good information and data from the demand side, which has been lacking, I think, in the past to any great extent. And it's provided us with a good level of comfort in terms of seeing the change in the approach that we've used to, or not the approach, the change in the outcomes of the processes to analyze this information. And finally, as has been mentioned by Mr. Mutsao, that there is an incongruence at the moment in terms of this sudden uptick in sales in the first half of the financial year by Eskom's own admission during its or indication rather than admission, indication during the financial results presentation, and the steadily declining sales that are in the thing. And I think this, we've made a call on that, which has been outlined by Mr. Mutsao, but I think it's something we're going to need to monitor very closely going forward to understand why is there this mismatch between what Eskom has put in its application, but what they're actually indicating is actually happening on the ground. I don't have much more to add, unless, Chairperson, you had something specific in mind that you wanted me to touch on.
I think that what you have said so far is sufficient for purpose of the discussion. The team will again, fine-tune the areas, the sections, just to cover the points as pointed out by the members, and also the input that you have also provided. Let me check if the members have specific questions on this one, the distribution. Members, by show of hands, if you have any specific guidance, areas of enhancements on the distribution part. Mr. Mkhize, you may go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm just unsure of one aspect, which is the fact that we've got now these three segments looked at separately and explicitly so. Yes, in the past it was like that, but not so overt or explicit with the unbundling now. If maybe Ukabazela there and the team, they can just just zoom in and try to then have an overarching view with Uschotla and look and see how this can be, how things can be, worked in a manner that is consistent. I do appreciate, for example, that the issue of the EAF finds expression even when one looks at the sales and vice versa. So if they can just kind of look at that, and during the presentations, or the public consultations, it was really concerning, I think, the sentiment of lack of affordability, the challenges with regard to the stretching of the bottom line of the squeezing of the bottom line, I mean, of businesses came to light sharply, and these are not in the purview of the regulator in terms of the various levers that can be pulled to assist with that. So, but I think that a strong reflection around that and possible issues to be considered will still amount to work done by a responsible regulator that is in touch and I would say sympathetic or empathetic of the plight of the consumers out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Pukula? You are still muted, Mr.
Chair, apologies. I struggled to get my mouse back to this. Chair, I know that we have in the discussion the arrear debt, and we have in this case softened in that we are giving Eskom some amount, I think just over 2 billion rand in each of the years. I am not necessarily opposed to that kind of thinking, but I do want us to discuss a matter that may lead us to not have that allowance on the area debt. So may I request, Chairperson, that after we have done these recommendations and after we have also dealt with the other item, if you could allow me an in-committee of 2 minutes to explain the thinking in this. Thank you, Chairperson.
But thank you very much, Mr. Pukula. Members, are you also in support? I think it's an important thing. I also missed to check what the members' view are with regards to area debt. Members, by show of hands, just for the record, for the in-committee on that matter. Thumbs up, members, if you agree. Thank you, Advocate Sitole. I support. Mr. Mkhize, are you also in agreement? All right, I think the majority then agree. Thank you, Mr. Okay, thanks, Ms. Mbongosi. Thank you very much. I just want to check if members are covered on the issue that was raised in previous engagements, including internal workshops, on the issue of surplus and debt, the debt the cover ratios. I just want to see if members are comfortable with what you have seen in the documents, just before we then go to the recommendations. Mr. Pukula?
Chair, the responses that I read that were from Eskom are not helpful. In fact, I don't think that they've been written by the CFO or CEO, because I think the CFO or CEO would be very careful. But having looked at that, because I think the explanation that was required was on the the changes in the interest. And I also have, as I indicated in the workshop, that I will also go and look at the ESCOM annual financial statements as well as at their debt. I can see that there's the tenures of the different loans they had and their maturity. I even saw the ES 26, which will be maturing. So those numbers are fine. But in the part around, because National Treasury will be paying their interest cover ratio, and even with us, we are giving them the amount, it still is important for us to understand that the 87 that it's going to be versus the 207 that they required, what really they are going to do. But when you look at, again, at their annual report and the other things, you can see that there are certain amounts, like for the coal and the mines of the region of 20 billion rand that they had depleted that they don't have. So I think Chair, there's comfort for me around the debt service cover ratio. I mean, we can reduce it if we need to, but there's comfort for me in that we are reducing their surplus from what they had applied for, which was on a 207 billion rand side, to less than 100 billion rand, and that 100 billion rand will cover these other decommissioning costs that they have to accumulate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, since there are no other hands, I think this is an area that we really discussed and requested the team to look carefully and consult all the relevant stakeholders, including the audited financial statements from ESCOM and also in terms of what the loan will do. But we are comfortable. If with this, I wanted to check if members would have input on this. Thank you, members. Members, we now at the decision stage. What is requested from the members today is a recommendation to the energy regulator. Members, subject to the adjustments that need to be made on this distribution arm of the business, the members of the energy regulator, in particular the electricity subcommittee members, are requested to recommend to the energy regulator to approve allowable revenue that is determined or proposed by the electricity division to the energy regulator. By show of hands, members, if you are in support of that decision, subject to all of the improvements to be made. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. I also support. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Advocate Sitole. Thank you very much, members. Thank you very much. At this point, I would like then to thank the members of the, sorry, we are actually not done. I'm sorry about that. I thought this was the only matter. Members, we step off this item from ESCOM. We are now going to consider another submission, and the last submission is the application for tariff reduction and amendment of the power purchase agreement by Cyrus Solar PV Project 1RF. Please take the matter as having been read. Mr. Pukula, is that the lingering hand?
Apologies, Chair, it must be. I'm trying to lower it.
Okay, no problem. Please introduce the matter, Mr. Sichotlo. This has to do with the reduction of the tariff. Please take the members through.
No, Chair, this one is not from my side. Mr. Mkize, please direct. Colleagues? It's from the IPP side, colleagues. Please, if you can assist the members.
Yes, Mr.
The members are wide awake. But now the staff members are not ready for us. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairperson, the members, and everyone on the platform. This application is for a tariff reduction and amendment of the power purchase agreement by Cyrus Solar PV. The purpose of the submission is to request the electricity subcommittee to approve the tariff reduction for Syria Solar PV and also to know the PPA that will be amended to reflect the adjusted tariff. The consideration of this amendment of existing PPAs, they have an impact on the approved tariffs, and is also therefore delegated to the Electricity Subcommittee as per clause 1 of 12 of the 29th August 2024 delegation matrix. Sirius Solar PV was issued with a license to operate a 75 megawatt generation plant on the 29th of October under the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producers Procurement Program. The tariffs at that time that were provided for bid window 1 and 4 had many risks in them. Therefore, there was some perception of creating a higher tariffs to attract investors. And this was mainly due to the risk premium of the project, since it was the first time to procure renewable energy projects. And the other one is the cost of technology was high during those times. And therefore, the DMRE, which now falls under the Department of DEE, Department of Electricity and Energy, and lenders formed a task team to look at ways of reducing those tariffs without compromising the integrity and reputation of the program. And I would like to mention that the financial information that is shown there is also confidential, with the numbers shown in there. And the recommendations are on page 5 of 19. Only the Electricity Subcommittee is to approve the tariff reduction and to know the PPA that will be amended to reflect the adjusted tariff for Sirius Solar PV. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. Members, any comments, guidance, or areas of enhancements? By show of hands, members, if you do have. If none, members, I would like to then take you to the recommendations. The Electricity Subcommittee is requested to approve Sirius Solar PV Project 1 RF tariff reduction from the amounts that are stated there, which are confidential. The base year for the adjustment is 1st April 2014, and it is adjusted to market conditions at the refinancing date. This will then translate to a new tariff now that will be the number that you see, the numbers that you see on paragraph 14.1.1. The committee is also requested to note the amendment of Sirius Solar PV Project 1 power purchase agreement, which will then reflect the adjusted tariffs. Members, by show of hands, if you are in support of the decision sought. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Advocate Sithole. Ms. Pongos, I know that you support us by heart. We note that, but since Ms. Pongos is not a member of the ELS, we would not add the approval from the side, but we appreciate the support. Thank you very much, members. Members, this is the last item on this agenda for the special meeting. I would like to then ask IT that we stop the live streaming at this stage, and I would like to thank all the members of the public that followed the discussions today. The